At 3:17 a.m. local time, nearly 400 nautical miles south of the Mexican coast, a radar operator aboard the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Hamilton spotted a new contact appear on the screen. One tiny, almost impossible blip, moving steadily at 8 knots through the darkness. The ship's SPS-78 3D radar struggled to keep the weak signal locked, identifying it as a low-profile semi-submersible vessel, the kind often called a narco-submarine, a shadow slipping through the midnight waters of the eastern Pacific. This was no ordinary speedboat. Beneath the surface was a 60-foot craft carrying roughly 10,000 pounds of uncut cocaine, a load worth more than $150 million on the street. Captain Miller, commanding officer of the Hamilton, had only 9 minutes to stop it before the vessel reached a critical offshore boundary and scuttled itself, sending both the cargo and crew to the ocean floor. If the boarding team missed that narrow window, the evidence would vanish, the shipment would be lost, and the mission would collapse. Failure would mean more than one missed seizure. It would put Operation Pacific Viper at risk, a major campaign aimed at breaking apart a multi-billion-dollar trafficking network. A miss would send a dangerous message. These semi-submersibles could move without consequences. A successful intercept, however, would lead to one of the biggest Coast Guard seizures on record. There was no room for error. Time remaining, 9 minutes, 14 seconds. The chain of events that would eventually lead to more than 100,000 pounds of cocaine being pulled from the Pacific began almost 2 weeks earlier. The Pacific Ocean, stretching across more than 63 million square miles, is not only a center of trade and global movement, it is also the largest and darkest smuggling route on Earth for transnational criminal groups. For years, cartels and their financial partners, now operating with the precision and coordination of state-level threats, have used this enormous expanse to push narcotics toward the United States, fueling violence, corruption, and human suffering from the jungles of Colombia to communities across America. The challenge is enormous. These are not reckless smugglers in fast boats making desperate runs. These are organized transnational criminal organizations using multi-million-dollar, hard-to-detect semi-submersibles, backed by intelligence networks built to monitor patrol patterns and avoid capture. What is at stake goes far beyond one shipment. It touches national security itself. Every 1,600 pounds of cocaine intercepted, the average haul during this mission, means lives protected, overdoses prevented, and millions stripped away from cartel operations. That is why the Department of Homeland Security launched Operation Pacific Viper, an aggressive expansion of Coast Guard presence designed to project force, restore maritime control in the Eastern Pacific, and strike these networks at their source. At its core, this is a mission to protect the American homeland before the damage reaches shore. For every Coast Guard sailor involved and for every viewer watching, the real question is this: do we have the technology, the strategy, and the determination to break an enemy this deeply rooted before its poison makes landfall? Because what the U.S. Coast Guard did next did more than stop one vessel. It set a new benchmark for maritime interdiction. The opponent in Operation Pacific Viper is not a nation-state, but a hidden and highly adaptable criminal empire. Drug cartels driven entirely by profit, with strategies built on speed, concealment, and plausible deniability. The threat is not only the scale of the shipment. The 100,000 pounds of cocaine seized could have brought the cartels an estimated $1.8 billion at the wholesale level. The deeper concern is how rapidly their tactics have evolved. They have moved far beyond the easily spotted go-fast boats of the past. In their place, they now rely on increasingly stealthy VSSLPs, vessel submersible low-profile craft, more commonly known as narco-subs. These semi-submersibles are usually custom-built, around 60 to 80 feet long, made from low-visibility fiberglass or carbon fiber composites, and engineered to ride so low in the water that only a small section of the hull and a narrow exhaust pipe remain above the surface. That design reduces their radar signature to something as small and insignificant as a fishing buoy, making them extremely difficult to detect with standard surface radar, beyond just a few nautical miles. They navigate with encrypted satellite phones and commercial GPS systems, often operating completely dark under the cover of night or poor visibility. Their response plan is direct. If interception becomes unavoidable, the crew opens internal scuttling valves, sending both the vessel and its cargo to deep water. In seconds, the evidence disappears, and the Coast Guard is left without the proof needed for a full enforcement success. What makes these networks especially dangerous is their mindset. They believe the emptiness of the open ocean protects them, and that no American force can maintain enough pressure to truly disrupt their routes. Operation Pacific Viper was built to break that confidence through constant, intelligence-driven pressure. The U.S. response to the narco-submarine threat is a tightly connected interdiction system designed for maritime security operations. At the center of that effort is the Legend-class national security cutter, USCGC Hamilton. This 418-foot ship is a highly advanced platform, displacing 4,500 tons and powered by a combined diesel and gas turbine system that allows it to reach speeds above 28 knots, fast enough to overtake nearly anything in its class. Its operational core is the Combat Information Center, where crews use the AN/SPS-78-3D radar together with advanced electro-optical and infrared sensors to detect and track even the faintest contacts. But the cutter's real reach comes from its air and surface teams. Its aviation detachment operates MH-65 Dolphin or MH-60T Jayhawk helicopters, each equipped with forward-looking infrared systems capable of spotting the faint heat signature of a low-profile submersible through darkness, sea spray, and clutter from miles away. These flight crews often include specialists from HITRON, the Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron, known for demanding low-altitude missions and precision engine-disabling tactics using the M107.50 caliber rifle. Once a target is visually confirmed, the next phase begins. The Law Enforcement Detachment, or LEADET, a team of highly trained and heavily equipped Coast Guard personnel, launches in 30-foot over-the-horizon small boats. Powered by twin 300-horsepower outboard engines, these boats can close the distance in minutes, putting the boarding team in position to carry out a non-compliant interdiction, the most critical and high-risk step in the entire chain. Above all of this is the persistent surveillance layer in the sky, usually provided by a U.S. Customs and Border Protection P-3 Orion or a U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon flying at roughly 25,000 feet. From overhead, these aircraft feed essential intelligence back to Hamilton's Combat Information Center through Secure Link 16 data exchange. This is not one ship searching blindly across a vast ocean. It is a coordinated, multi-domain surveillance and interdiction network designed to leave no route open and no escape untracked. By 3:22 a.m., the pressure inside Hamilton's Combat Information Center had become almost unbearable. The contact, designated Sierra 34, is now just 5.5 nautical miles away, still moving at a steady 8 knots, barely visible against the dark surface of the ocean. Inside the Combat Information Center, Tactical Action Officer Lieutenant Commander Evans gives the command, "Launch the bird." On the flight deck, the MH-65 helicopter, callsign cutter 6505, is already spinning up. Within minutes, its twin engines roar to life, and the aircraft lifts into the night. At the controls, Lieutenant Commander Reyes pushes hard toward the intercept point, racing against time. At the same moment, on the water below, the LEDET team, led by Chief Petty Officer Barnes, is already in motion. Their over-the-horizon boat cuts through the waves at 45 knots, seawater spraying across their faces as the three-man team checks their gear, readying grapples and weapons for what comes next. The operation is now fully in motion. At 3:28 a.m., Cutter 6505 reaches the target area. From above, Reyes' co-pilot locks onto the heat signature. Visual confirmed. A black fiberglass hull, riding low, only about 3 feet above the waterline. 2 individuals visible. Scuttling ports already open. This is the critical moment. Seconds later, the LEDET boat closes in fast, approaching from the starboard side. The crew aboard the submersible realizes they've been found. In a last-ditch move, they open the valves further. Water begins flooding into the hull and attempt to send everything to the bottom before it can be seized. "Non-compliant vessel, boarding now," Barnes calls out over the radio. At 3:30 a.m., the OTH boat pulls alongside, just feet from the rapidly sinking vessel. Timing is everything. Barnes and his lead operator move instantly, breaching the main hatch and dropping into the confined interior. Inside, the air is thick with diesel fumes and salt water. The 2 operators on board are quickly overwhelmed and secured before they can react. In less than a minute, their plan is shut down. The boarding team moves fast to close the internal valves, stopping the flooding just in time. The vessel stabilizes, hovering dangerously low, but no longer sinking. The submersible is secured. The crew is in custody, and the cargo, 10,000 pounds of cocaine, is intact. This wasn't an isolated moment. It was one of 34 successful interdictions carried out across the region during Operation Pacific Viper. Each one followed the same high-pressure sequence, and together they delivered a major blow to the cartel's operations. By the end of the mission, more than 100,000 pounds of illegal drugs had been intercepted. The impact was massive, an estimated $473 million disruption to the financial backbone of these networks. Days later, at Port Everglades in Florida, the scale of that success became visible. The USCGC Hamilton offloaded a record 76,000 pounds of seized cargo. On the pier, tightly wrapped bales were stacked into towering rows, a powerful visual of what had been taken off the supply chain. It took multiple forklifts and a dedicated security detail just to manage the operation. The scene made one thing clear. This was more than a single mission. It was a statement of capability, coordination, and determination at sea. For the Coast Guard crews, especially the sailors aboard the Hamilton, there was a deep and quiet sense of fulfillment in watching such a dangerous and demanding mission unfold exactly as planned. They had gone up against an opponent with vast financial power and advanced stealth capabilities. Yet step by step, they exposed every weakness in that system. They proved that no matter how dark the ocean and no matter how carefully hidden the vessel, the American interdiction chain does not let go. For the cartels, the cost was enormous. It was not only the money lost, but the damage to their confidence. Their multi-million-dollar narco subs, once seen as untouchable tools of smuggling, were reduced to trophies of a failed operation. The sea returned to its natural rhythm, and for a moment, calm was restored through decisive action. The success of Operation Pacific Viper and the seizure of more than 100,000 pounds of illegal cargo was about far more than a single enforcement win. It became a powerful example of maritime control and modern security strategy in action. It also sent a clear message to every adversary, whether criminal trafficking networks or hostile state-backed actors. That message was simple. The United States has both the technology and the coordinated doctrine to operate as one fully connected force, capable of finding and stopping threats across enormous and contested waters. The speed of the national security cutter, the precision of the Hitron helicopter crews, the discipline of the Ladet boarding teams, and the constant watch provided by airborne surveillance all work together as one seamless system. There were no openings, no weak points, no space to slip away. The cartels made one critical mistake. They believed money could shield them from consequences, and that their low-profile fiberglass submersibles could outmatch America's intelligence, tracking, and sensor network. The U.S. Coast Guard proved something larger in this operation. Technology by itself decides nothing. What matters is the determination, coordination, and professionalism behind it. That is what turns capability into results. And the broader message to the world, especially to every nation that depends on open and secure sea lanes, is impossible to ignore. The oceans cannot be handed over to lawlessness. Stability and security at sea are not just ideals people talk about. They are realities that must be defended, protected, and enforced by those willing to act with strength and precision. So what does the relentless success of Operation Pacific Viper say about America's readiness to face an even greater challenge on the open sea? Share your thoughts in the comments.